we're coming to you from the Accra International Conference Center, where we're having the third National Policy Fair. Viewers can recall that His Excellency President John Vincent Mills, at the beginning of his administration, to give meaning to transparent government, to give meaning to accountability, instituted the National Policy Fair, where opportunity is given to the ministry, departments, and agencies to bring to the fore, to bring to the public and to the international communities the policies of government, the issues on display, so that the people of Ghana can have an opportunity to meet and interact with the representatives from these ministries, departments, and agencies. Tonight, to help us with the discussion on Majority Caucus is the Honorable Minister, the Deputy Minister for Local Government and Rural Development, Honorable Elvis Afriye Ankra. Honorable, you're warmly welcome to Majority Caucus.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, give us an overview of what your ministry is actually exhibiting at the ongoing National Policy Fair.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. Our ministry, as you know, is dedicated to decentralization.
Okay.
That is bringing governance to the doorsteps of the people.
Okay.
And so at the fair, what we've tried to do is that we've tried to display some of our policy documents, because all that we do is hinged on policy. So we've tried to display some of the policy documents that we've gone through. For example, we've gone through the decentralization policy, and we have a decentralization action plan, and this has been implemented. So we have those ones there. We have our national sanitation policy. We have our national sanitation action plan. We have the sanitation sector investment plan. Those one has been displayed. And then the various sectors that come under us. We have the Department of Community Development, Parks and Gardens, Births and Deaths Registry. All these departments that come under us, all of them have displayed what they do to the public, so that the public will understand. Beyond that, you also have a section of our assemblies. You have AMA, TMA, Ghana East, some of the assemblies who have displayed just a little bit of what they've been doing with the Common Fund and with their IGF to the people.
Yeah, so briefly, the policy of decentralization. I can say that under His Excellency President John Rawlings, he's being credited with the one who actually instituted the decentralization policy. How has the policy fared so far? Well,
I think, like you rightly said, there were a lot of strides during the NDC 1 and 2 and PNDC. I think that there was a little bit of a stall from 2001 to 2008. When we came back, we realized that there was the need for us to review the whole decentralization process, because it had been implemented for 20 years. So there was a need for a review. So what we did was that we set up a national decentralization stakeholders conference. There was a national conference, but before the conference, we had various consultations across the country. We went to all the regions of the country. We engaged civil society, we engaged women groups, we engaged political parties, we engaged academics for them to write papers. And all these, we had an expert team that looked at all these views, collated them, modified them, reviewed them, and then we put them together. And so that evolved in the document, which is the National Decentralization, Revised Decentralization Policy.
For the first time, we had
gone through cabinet and approved by cabinet.
For the first time, we had a composite budget that was presented in the 2012 budget. Is that a direct outcome of these stakeholder forums and meetings as regards to decentralization policy?
I wouldn't say direct, but it's an indirect. The question of the composite budget is something that has been on the drawing board for a long time. The challenge has been to have the will and the capacity to implement. So as part of the decentralization, and I need to explain that we also have an action plan, and then under that we have an IMCC, which is the Interministerial Coordinating Committee, which was set up, chaired by His Excellency the Vice President. Now, the outcomes of this is that we must, to bring real meaning to decentralization, resources must be devolved to the localities, and that is where the composite budget comes in. Where, and apart from that, also we passed some legislation, LI 1961, for instance, where the various departments, you have various sectors, education, health, etc. When you go to the regions and the various assemblies, they are entities of themselves. LI 1961, what it does is that it brings all these departments directly under the assembly. So their budgets and the resources that hitherto they were claiming from Accra will now go directly to the assembly. So that is the basis that underpins the composite budget. So it's important that we look at it in that perspective.
But your ministry, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, is it just about district assemblies, and then what you've been doing alongside? What are some of the policy initiatives that you have engaged in since His Excellency President John Evans?
I mean, local government is everything. All governance at the end of the day is local.
Exactly. So.
And so you have the various MMDAs, but at the end of the day, when it comes to implementation and impact on the people, it manifests through the local government system. That is why we needed to do a review. And one of the things also that we did was a promulgation of LI 1961. LI 1961, in the past, you realize that we had over 20,000 electoral areas. So assembly members were all over the place. What we have done is that we have reduce them to 5,000 so that an assembly electoral area is coterminous with an electoral area. So that you don't have 20,000 plus, but you have 5,000. It makes governance much more easy to manage. So that is one of the things that we've done. And apart from that also, as I told you, the decentralization, it came with an action plan. It came with the IMCC, because one of the challenges has been that you have sector ministers by themselves who are ministers in their own right. Now you're doing decentralization and you take decisions that affect them in their ministries. So with the vice president chairing that IMCC, issues that are intersectorial are cleared at that table. And we have a secretariat at the local government school, and then they meet regularly. We inaugurated it recently, and they've been meeting. And then we've also created new districts. For your information, we have created a number of new districts. We've created 39 districts. We've elevated 7 districts to municipalities, and then we've declared 9 municipalities. So in all, we have 55 new districts. Ashanti has 3, Brong-Ahafo 5, Central 3, Eastern 6, Greater Accra 6, Northern 6, Upper East 4, Upper West 2, Volta 7, and Western 5. The overall effect is that we want to bring governance down to the level of the people. In areas where the geographical areas are so huge, it becomes very difficult to manage the districts. So when we break it down, they will have their own resources, they have their own budgets, they have their own common fund. And for the first time, what we also did is that when the districts were created, even before they were created, we made sure that budgetary provision was made for them. 42 million Ghana cedis has been made available for them, so that as they take off, unlike in the past, where districts were created but there were no resources. In fact, we had situations where some districts were meeting on top of filling stations.
I heard that story.
There was one district we went to in the Brong-Ahafo region where it was a compound house, and as we entered, half of the house, they were pounding fufu and apochenkaka, so you can imagine the distractions. So right now, there's seed money, so that when the assemblies start, the basic requirements in terms of office accommodation, in terms of residential accommodation for the main heads, in terms of resources to enable them to begin to flow, logistics, vehicles, etc. Money has been made available, and we are determined that by June this year we'll begin the process of inaugurating them.
So by June, the 35 new districts, the 55 new district assemblies
has been passed by law. We've set up a team. We are now reviewing their needs. We have some data on their needs. Some communities have decided to provide them with temporary accommodation. We need to refurbish some. We need to build new ones. We need to get them some basic logistics like vehicle and all those things. We are collating all those things so that by June we'll start the inauguration process. But as we speak now, by law, the assemblies are in existence.
You made mention of the District Assembly Common Fund. How is the ministry going to disburse the common fund even to these new district assemblies? Are there provisions, or they are going to be left to fend for themselves?
Fortunately, the common fund is disbursed according to a certain criteria, and it is approved by Parliament. And there's a formula, and the formula looks at various factors. It looks at population, it looks at geographical location, it looks at social services, the number of health facilities, educational facilities. That is what we call the needs. So it balances all these formula and then determines how much each assembly should get. Fortunately, in this new formula, which has been approved by Parliament, again, provision was made for these new assemblies. So apart from the 42 million Ghana cedis, which has been made available by government for the new assemblies, they are also going to partake of the common fund. We know that the common fund is 7.5% of the national revenue, which is set aside. Apart from that also, in the past, we realized that there were a lot of deductions centrally from the common fund for sometimes items that the assemblies do not need. So as a short-term measure to forestall this, what we've done is that we insist that for any deduction, the assembly must meet the assembly must pass a resolution. We must see minutes of that resolution. It must be signed by the district chief executive, the presiding member, and the coordinating director, so that we ensure that every deduction that is being made is with the consent of the assembly. We have a backlog of situations where the assemblies have bought bulldozers, tractors, and all those things, which they are still paying. And so they still complain that indeed the deductions are happening. But those are deductions that they have engaged in legally. So we don't have any option but to clear those deductions. Once we finish those deductions, going forward, we believe that the assemblies will now be getting a fair share. The common fund will come to them directly, and then they will decide what to do with it.
The issues of less debt, yes debt, and then I think there's less debt, yes debt. Can you give us the distinction?
I can speak for less debt.
So
and the less debt is the local entrepreneurs and skills development
What
program.
does he actually go out to do? And is less debt also on display at the Quality Fair?
Less debt is, in fact, they have many stands. They have about 3 stands, and when you go there, you see what they do. We observed that, first of all, is to meet the challenge of youth unemployment. Secondly, it's a fully funded program of government. The government of Ghana, no donor is putting in a cent. The government of Ghana in this year's budget made 84 million Ghana cedis available. Thirdly, is to provide skills training free of charge to the youth. And what we do is that we look at various communities and districts and look at the skills that are necessary or required in those areas. And then we provide equipment and training facilities. And so we have mobile phone repair, we have laptop repair, computer and laptop repair, we have the photography model, we have a dressmaking model, we have agro-processing model, we have the transportation model. Under the transportation model, you know that in our villages sometimes our women find it difficult to cut their foodstuffs from the farm gate to the market center. So we have these trucks that people can make available to these women, carry them, bring them. We have small water tankers that can supply water to places like Adenta or other places where water is scarce. We have another type that can be used for cutting of refuse.
These are community-based working groups.
Community-based groups, you know, and people go and apply. They are screened. They look at your interest and enthusiasm and capacity, and then they are trained free of charge.
Who qualifies to apply?
Any Ghanaian who is unemployed. Any Ghanaian who is unemployed.
So what do they do? Do they go to the district assembly or their agents who are going around?
We have coordinators in each and every one of the districts. So far we are 170 districts. We have coordinators in each of these districts. So what they do is that they look at the various electoral areas, and there must be equity, of course. So if there are maybe 10 electoral areas and the quota for that district is maybe 300. I just came back from Central Region a couple of days ago where we graduated 700 of them from 700.
Wow.
Last 3 weeks I was in the Volta region. We graduated almost 650.
Wow.
And we've been graduating them.
And these are people who go through training every other year, new batches?
It's not this, I'm talking about this year alone.
This year alone.
So far we've trained close to 20,000.
20,000
this year alone.
And
we are targeting to train about 40,000.
And
when they're trained, they are not just training the skills, they're training the skills, they are trained in business management, because it's important that the person has the acumen. That is the challenge with most of the training programs. People are trained with the skills, but they are not trained with management. The idea is that they will be able to grow those businesses, so that in a period of 3 to 5 years, if those businesses grow, it will have a multiplier effect. So that in 5 years, these 40,000 jobs can generate an extra 20,000 to 20 each, and then you're looking at getting to 1 million jobs. So that is the idea, that will build the entrepreneurial spirit in them from the beginning. And then they're given the equipment very, very heavily subsidized. So that the equipment is such that, for instance, if you're given a camera, I'll give you, that's a typical example. The amount that you have to pay per week is almost minimal. In fact, in most of the graduation ceremonies, the photographers make more money than anybody, because by the end of the day, they make so much money.
Pictures of
they
their
have
colleagues.
instances where people have gotten equipment and within 6 months they paid for it. And once you pay for it, first of all, you don't pay for the equipment ab initio, you don't pay any deposits. The equipment is given to you after training. You sign for it, and then you pay weekly, monthly, depending on your capacity or what you agree on.
Let's take let's take off. Yeah, viewers, you're still watching the Majority Caucus, a special edition, coming to you from the Accra International Conference Center, where the third National Policy Fair is ongoing. And then the Policy Fair started on Monday, April 16, and it's going to end on Saturday, April 21. You are all welcome to the Accra International Conference Center, where we're having a hearty chat under the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development with Honorable Elvis Ankra, the Deputy Minister. Honorable, before we went on the break, we were having a discussion on less them. So is it the case that you just don't train the people and then throw them out there to go out to fend for themselves?
No.
But you really equip them with working tools?
Exactly. Give them the tools.
What is the essence of engaging in such venture?
First of all, we want to create a reduced unemployment. That is the key thing.
Okay.
And then we also want to create a culture of entrepreneurship.
Okay.
If you look at countries like Malaysia, Singapore, etc., the SME sector contributed and still contributes a greater proportion of their GDP.
Okay.
And out of those SMEs came great entrepreneurs. For example, if you go to Korea, in Korea, Hyundai, the founder of Hyundai, started as an entrepreneur. He was using a bicycle, what we call Buzanga Volvo, and he was distributing rice in villages. Subsequently, he set up a small workshop and he was repairing vehicles. Through support, today Hyundai contributes over 30% of GDP.
Yeah, there are a lot of their cars in town.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're saying that apart from giving them the training, the skills training, when you give them that entrepreneurship orientation, tomorrow we'll be creating the Zoom Lions, the RLGs, the Camas
you build them up from the scratch.
Exactly. And then the terms of repayment are flexible. So that after a year or two, the equipment becomes yours. And so we train them in such a way that we expect that if you started with one hair dryer, for example, by the time you finish paying for it, what you earn, you should reinvest a quantum of it so that in a year or two, you should now have 2 dryers, 3 dryers, 5 dryers. If it's a pickup truck, if it's a truck that you obtain, because the terms of payment are flexible, you finish for it, and then you should now invest in another one. So within a short time, you have 3, you have 4, you have 5. You're creating entrepreneurs, you're creating business people who will in turn employ people, and also transfer of technology, which is something that we have to do as we become a middle income country.
Okay. When we took over power in January 2009, a major critic had been that the school feeding programs, I mean, there have been a lot of propaganda out there that the school feeding program was collapsing, that especially at the time when the Dutch government withdrew support. How has the school feeding program fared under your administration as the Deputy Minister for Local Government?
Yeah, school feeding, as you said, we inherited a lot of challenges, and there was a lot of corruption, malfeasance, lack of transparency in the way and manner in which it was being handled. So we set up a committee to do an extensive review. And based on that review, a lot of things came out. And part of government's target was that we should reach 1 million pupils.
1 million?
1 million. At that time, we were doing just a little over 600,000. And I can say that as we speak today, we've hit the 1 million target. And all that money is coming from the government of Ghana.
You mean that with the target of 1 million that you have hit, or we have hit as a nation under the school feeding program, it is all being supported by the government of Ghana?
Exactly, government of Ghana. Of course, the World Food Program provides some support. Other donor agencies provide technical support in terms of capacity building, in terms of some logistics for the various coordinators and all those things. But a chunk of the feeding money is from the government of Ghana. And we've hit 1 million. And what we also had to do was to do redistribution, because you had situations where some endowed schools were having the school feeding program. In Accra, for instance, schools that I don't want to mention their names, but very, very, well-placed elite schools were getting the school feeding program. The pupils will not even eat the food. While schools in Ashedu Keteke did not have the school feeding program. So we had to do a redistribution. So if you recall, there was a lot of brouhaha around those times, because people who were benefiting from that system, definitely when you're bringing, they will not like it.
They will resist it.
But we're looking at the interest of the population, the poor people of this country, the larger populace. And so what we did was to do redistribution, target poor areas, Upper East, Upper West, Northern region, and other parts of the country where poverty is endemic. We looked at the poverty profile of this country and ensure that we directed the feeding to those places and Today we've hit our 1 million target and we're making an impact.
So that's impressive, because I remember that when we went on a trip on the tour of the Volta region in the company of the National Youth Organizer, Ludwig Monge, we went to the Nkwanta district, and then the district executive actually mentioned that when they came to power, they came to meet only 4 schools in the district that were under the school feeding program. But today there are 22 more schools that have been added, to making it 26 schools benefiting under the school feeding program.
It's because of the redistribution, because we looked at places where urban areas where it wasn't very necessary. Some of them were feeding 2,000, then we took it away, or we reduced it, and then we take it to places where there's deprivation. And we think that,
that is actually in line with the social democratic agenda.
As a social democratic party, we need to look at the rights of the poor. So that's what
waste management. We are living in a time that there is a lot of talk, a lot of concern about how waste is managed, especially with the outbreak of the epidemic. How is the Ministry of Local Government collaborating with the various agencies and departments under you to manage the system?
Again, that was one of the major challenges we encountered. You recall that when we came to power, there were heaps of rubbish everywhere. And we managed to clear those heaps of rubbish, and then we put in place, first of all, the policy perspective is important. I told you that we have a national environmental sanitation policy approved by cabinet. We have the national environmental action plan, because out of the policy there must be an action plan, and then we have the sanitation sector investment plan. So these policies create the atmosphere where we know exactly, for instance, if you take the energy sector, they can tell you exactly what the needs are, what they want to do within this time frame. When it comes to the sanitation sector, we have identified the needs, the issues, and we have clearly determined what it would take, what it will cost, and that is why we are on the path to solving the problem. First of all, we recognize that one of the challenges has been final dumping sites. Oglogo and all those areas. We all know the issues, because nobody wants to release land. So the government supported the private sector, and through private sector, and they're putting up the compost plant at Ajenkotoku. Now, when that
one that the president recently commissioned.
And when that compost plant takes off, we're going to be able to process 900 metric tons of waste.
900 metric tons of waste.
And that would be a major, it will take pressure off the landfill sites.
So we are actually convincing Ghanaians and the entire world that we are no longer going to dump waste in dumping sites and wasteful sites.
We are moving from that situation. But beyond that, recently we were on a trip to China, and the investors, I think they are still in town now, and they are going to put up 2 waste-to-energy plants, one in Kumasi in the Ashanti region, and one in Cape Coast. And the one in Cape Coast, the intention is that the Kumasi one will serve Kumasi and Ejuso. And the one in Cape Coast would deal with KEA and surrounding areas.
Waste to energy plant. What it
means is that the waste is going to go to the plant, and then it's going to be converted. I have seen it with my own eyes. The high intensity of heat in a furnace, and that furnace will then generate electricity, and that electricity will be fed into the national grid. So part of the energy challenges that we have would be met through this. And they are in town, they've got the land, and they're going to start working now.
That indeed is also great news, because it's going to create a number of jobs.
And we're moving gradually away from the traditional methods of collecting waste and dumping them, and with its associated challenges. The land is not available, issues of leachate, environmental degradation. So we want to see that in the short to medium term, we now have the capacity to take the waste, and then one of the challenges has been that why the waste processing was not working is because the traditional technology was based on separation at source. So when you go to UK and other places, you realize that you have to separate.
Segregation of waste.
Put
plastic here,
in our culture,
here,
we don't have that culture yet. And so that has been, many people have come in, and it's been difficult because the technology they were bringing was based on separation. Now we found technology where you don't need to separate. Whether it's gari, kokonte, rubber, metal, wood, everything, it all goes into the furnace, and the furnace burns it. And apart from that, after we generate the derivative, it can produce 20,000 blocks for low-cost housing a day.
Oh, you mean you can use the waste from the waste?
Exactly.
Yeah, let me put it that way. The waste from the waste.
You have derived benefits by energy. The waste that you get, the derivative, the residue is used to make very solid blocks, 20,000 a day for
so
affordable
in the not too distant future, we are going to see some new kinds of building materials in the system, which is going to be a direct
solid, durable, cheaper, and is derived from waste. So at the end of the day, there will be no waste. Waste then becomes wealth.
Wow, the Better Ghana agenda is still getting better.
We are on course,
and it's doing quite well. Yeah, on the issue of, I believe that many of our viewers, especially in the Volta region, who might be watching us from our stronghold, the Ketu North and the Ketu South constituencies, might be interested in the discussion on the Aflao issue. Yeah, what exactly do you have to tell them as what's the ministry doing so far to ensure that problem is laid to a permanent rest?
Well, when it comes to creation of districts, naturally at any given time, everybody would want to have a district or a district capital.
Okay.
The Aflao question is a little complex.
Okay.
In that the Electoral Commission functions within a certain formula.
Okay.
If X amounts of districts are created here, X amount of districts will be created in another region.
Okay.
So that is how it works.
Oh, okay.
There were issues about demarcation and all those things, and siting of capital and all those things. I think that now that the new districts have been created, let's inaugurate them, and then the Electoral Commission will also do what it has to do.
Okay.
And then subsequently, once government is still the government can create and make provision whenever the need arises. But as we speak now, we've gone through the process. Those that will be created have been created already.
Okay.
When another opportunity comes, we'll look at.
Okay, so it's not the case that government has totally neglected the Aflao issue,
absolutely not.
or decided to wash hands out of the Aflao
absolutely
situation?
not. There were clinical issues, there were boundary issues, and we felt that in the larger interest we should hold on for the meantime. If you recall, for instance, in MPP era, they created districts 2 times. Okay. The first one they created a set of districts. The second time they created a set of districts. So the door is not completely closed. It's just that at this particular time we may not be able to, and that is why we thought that we should raise the entire place to a municipal status, including Aflao. At the end of the day, the key thing is that you want to district, municipality, metropolitan area to bring development. And Aflao is a strategic place, border entrance to the eastern corridor of this nation. So we think that in the meantime, what we should be focusing on is to devolving more resources. For instance, the Aflao market. The border itself, we must redesign that border and make it very modern. Put in place modern features, lights and everything, so that the place will be fit an entrance. So district or no district, municipality or no municipality, these are things that the government is committed to doing. Fortunately, we have some projects, donor projects. The Ghana Urban Management Pilot Project. We have the local government capacity support. These are World Bank supported projects, which are focused on urban areas, because you know that Ghana has now crossed the urban threshold, where over 51% of the population live in urban areas. So in recognition of that, the donors are supporting us to develop a policy to deal with urban challenges, and also to support the various metropolitan and municipal assemblies in these urban areas to meet those urban challenges. Because if you had a population of say 100,000 some years ago, your needs and challenges were different, will vary. And if you have a population of 250,000 and you still have the same logistics and resources, obviously you cannot respond to those needs. So the idea with this project is that we'll build the institutional capacity in terms of the assembly itself, and of staff, in terms of logistics, and also do actual development projects. If it is drainage, if it is road, if it is markets, for instance, under GAM, we are redeveloping the whole market. We are building a brand new market for them. And in Tamale and so many other areas. So those are the kinds of interventions that we are doing to respond to the current urban challenges.
What of other issues that are community-based as regards distribution of uniforms, school uniforms and all that? I believe there's some collaboration between your ministry and that of the education ministry to give...
even though it's school uniforms comes under education, but at the end of the day, it is through the assembly, the district education offices. And as you know, 3 million school uniforms have been distributed. Now, for people who have not lived in rural communities, who do not know what poverty is, where a child is psychologically traumatized because his uniform is torn, especially the shorts. And
there are holes in the shorts. They go to school and
their
they tease them.
bottom is showing and they are being teased, you know, and sometimes multiple patches on the bottom. It affects the children, you know. And so with the school uniforms, it builds their confidence. They feel that they are also Ghanaians, and it prepares them psychologically to fit into the society. So nobody should downplay that. And added to that too, we have the 42 million exercise books that we've given out. In some families, they cannot afford exercise books. You know, we've given out these exercise so that the children can be able to write. You know, it's not enough to just go to school, but they must be able to.
We'll go for another short break, and then we come back. The discussion continues. Yeah, viewers, this is a special edition of the Majority Caucus, coming to you from the Accra International Conference Center, where the 3rd National Policy Fair is underway under the theme Together, Building Together in a Better Ghana. The Majority Caucus special edition, coming to you from the Accra International Conference Center, where the 3rd National Policy Fair is underway. And I will entreat the viewing public to make time to come to the conference center between Monday, started on Monday on the 16th of April 2012, and it's going to end on Saturday, April 21, 2012. And the theme for the policy fair is Building Together in a Better Ghana. We are still here on the Majority Caucus with Honorable Elvis Efree Ankra, who is the Deputy Minister for Local Government and Rural Development. Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, how do you assess the performance of the various district assemblies so far under the Better Ghana agenda?
Well, you know, when I'm asked this question, I hesitate to answer, because it's very easy to say that, well, we're doing so well. So what we are doing is that we are documenting.
You are documenting what you are achieving?
Yes.
Is that part of the Green Book?
No, the Green Book is just an extrapolation of a few districts. You cannot, I mean, if we're going to document in detail, and the gentleman who is in charge of the documentation is standing here, we would need volumes. But we're trying to see how we can package it. But so far, based on our statistics, if you take sector by sector, if you take the health sector, education sector, you take all the other social sectors, I can say without any fear of contradiction that assembly by assembly, what we have done between now, 2009 and today, is more than what the MPP did from 2001 to 2008. And we are packaging it. We're looking at, for instance, if we take a health education sector, we talk about the number of health or classrooms that were built, whether it's primary, secondary, etc., in a particular community. We talk about the district, the location, the cost, and then we look at what the MPP did. And I'm saying that in each instance, sometimes it is even 3 times what we have done in these 3 years is far more than what the MPP did.
I think a case in point is under the 8-year tenure of President Kufuor, a whole ministry was created for the beautification of the capital city. And then we didn't see much activity, to the extent that even the age-old Kwame Nkrumah circle, where the fountain is, was neglected for a long time, including some monuments in the capital city. But today, under the 3 years, a bit under the 3 years of the Better Ghana agenda, we've had the Millennium City project, which is bringing up marvelous projects in the city.
When the mayor started saying that we're going to stop the shift system, everybody thought he was joking. Today, go around and see. 3-story buildings.
Impressive structure. So I hear for the first time the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development is giving motorbikes to all district assemblies.
Motorbikes to each and every assembly member.
Men and women?
Men and women.
And what's the essence of giving them motorbikes?
The essence is for them to be able to access their communities. The assemblyman is like your local MP. So what he does is that he must come to you, seek your views and input before he comes to assembly meeting. After assembly meeting, he must go back to you and report and take your feedback. So they don't have access to vehicles. They don't have, some live in communities very far away, bad roads. So by providing them motorbikes, we are deepening decentralization. Is
that the only motivation you give them? Or you give them some allowances?
That is a major motivation. Major. Because assuming that they didn't have, what it means is that they have to use their own money to go around the communities, and the distances are incredible. So this is a major. Of course, they take sitting allowance, but the sitting allowance is tied to their IGF. Because we want them to be motivated. They must be able to generate internal revenue so that out of that internal revenue, the assembly will meet and approve how much they take. If you don't generate enough internal revenue, you don't get enough allowance. And I think that is fair. We don't want them to be spoon-fed by government. Every assembly has its own resources, local resources, property rates, all kinds of revenue. We want the assemblies to develop that capacity so that they will be able to meet some of their legitimate aspirations.
I was
talking about local economic development, which is a new trend in local governance now, where the local authorities are not just administrative institutions, but they are also meant to be catalysts for socio-economic development. So each assembly is to do a profile of its peculiar economic advantages. So if, for instance, it's shea nuts that you have competitive advantage in, if it is cocoa, whatever it is, you package that. And then, we have a new PPP policy. And indeed, we've had investors beginning to come into the various communities, looking at the local economic potentials and going in there, the assembly creating the conducive environment for them to invest so that they can create jobs and they can create social benefits for the people. So that is a new trend that we are focusing on, that assemblies are not just political and administrative entities, but they must also become tools for stimulating local economic growth. And it's something that we're working on.
But before we go, the activities that we are all engaging now is a biometric registration exercise. Have you registered yourself?
Oh yeah, I have.
Okay, in which constituency?
I also West Wagon constituency. Blue Gate Top. I registered. It was interesting when I went. They said, honorable, come and let's do it for you first. I said no.
You want to be in the queue?
I joined the queue and I observed. I spent about a little over an hour 20 minutes, and I asked them questions. Especially I noticed that where they were capturing data was where there was a lot of delay. And I asked, and they explained to me that they want to take one person at a time so that they can follow the sequence. And then the guy also explained, I don't think it's something that has come out, that the software is such that when you input, you cannot force the software to respond. So when you input, it has to generate the next page by itself. And so this is something that I think the EC should look at. If there's a way, maybe the operating system they are using, if there's a way they can fine-tune it so that it will work faster. Because they say when they input, you wait a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds or a minute before the next page will come. Now if this can be reduced to 10 seconds, then you can be sure that it will go faster.
If all of us have this understanding of how the system works, why then are some areas recording pockets of violence?
I think that, you see, all these things that are happening, there are root causes. But Ghanaians will like playing the ostrich. If we had begun to deal with the root causes of these things long ago, I don't think we would have been. This is just ordinary registration. Go register and go home. But when people think that they must win elections at all costs, and when people say that all die be die, and no matter what it is, they must win elections, that is where people want to import people from other constituencies to come and register in places where the results are marginal. They want to bring people from other places. There are interesting cases, two cases, one in Ododododo and one in Honorable Collins constituency, where people were brought in a bus, they joined the queue, they got to the place, they asked them their house number. The gentleman mentioned the house number. The house number happened to be Collins Dowd's constituency chairman's house number, who was the third person in the queue. They asked him, you said this is your house, and they had written the house numbers on strips of paper. They asked him, so do you know this man? He says no.
Wow. You don't know your own landlord.
You don't know it clearly. Eventually, investigations revealed that they were brought from other places. Clearly, these kinds of things cannot be countenanced. You cannot say that you are waiting for the person to go and commit a crime, then you challenge. No, if you see that people are preventing, you must raise an alarm. So it's an electoral offense. It is that desire that people want to take advantage, undue advantage of the system, to manipulate the system to suit them. That is what is creating problems. But if we all believe that, look, if you are a party, I'm very confident in what the NDC has done. When I'm on the platform, have too much to say.
Yeah. The Green Book is loaded with a lot of
Green Book, 170
stuff.
Districts. We can talk for 24 hours non-stop without talking about personality, achievement. There's so much to talk about. If another party also believes that in their time they achieved so much, or they have a certain idea to transform the country, speak about it. Ghanaians will be the judges. But this idea of trying to manipulate the system and bulldoze our way and do anything possible to win, it is not right. And that is why I agree with the president that, look, nobody is above the law. If I go and misbehave anywhere at the Electoral Commission, the police should pick me up and deal with me. If I go and stand somewhere and say irresponsible things, I must be dealt with. More coming to irresponsible statements. You see, we've gotten this far because when people say irresponsible things, instead of us mentioning their name, and
condemning them,
you said this at this time, it is irresponsible, it is bad, you must not do it. House of Chiefs, churches, a chief imam, civil society, everybody, they deal with you because your name is known, your identity is known. What happens? All the political parties, the way they are saying violence, and then they will go and mention what your champion said some time ago, and then so it diminishes equalization. It diminishes the impact of the condemnation. That is why we have moved from all die be die, I can afford there, to Rwanda, to Afghanistan, to lynch policemen, and now lynch ours. That is why we've gotten to this point. And all of us, civil society groups especially, we must get up. If somebody does a thing, mention the person's name. What you have done is irresponsible. We call you publicly, sanction you, deal with you. And then the law enforcement says, but if we go around it, all the political parties, the way they are behaving, the individuals have names. If I do something which is not right, or I say something responsible, hold me responsible, mention my name. In any case, who said the party met to. If all die be die had been condemned strenuously, we would not have graduated from all die be die to here I can afford there to Rwanda and now see where we are heading to. I mean, if what happened yesterday, if people had decided to react, do you know the implications for this country?
I think we shouldn't push ourselves to that brink.
It is absolutely unacceptable. It must be condemned in uncertainty. And I expect that even the party itself, if there are decent-minded people in that party, and I believe they are, they must be the first to condemn that kind of behavior. It is unacceptable. I am half Ashanti, half Ewe. You are saying if I go to Ashanti region, they should kill me. If I go to Volta region, they'll say I'm a stranger. Where should we go to?
All right. Yeah, let's come back. Let's come back to the policy fair.
The Ministry of Local Government is focused on deepening decentralization. And by deepening decentralization, we're saying that we're bringing development right to the doorstep of the people. We're involving more people in the decision-making process. So the process of even making decisions, we want to ensure that many more people at the community levels are involved. Many people don't know, but some of the assemblies, not all of them, engage so much in community planning, where they even go to communities to determine even how school blocks should be built, so that they involve the people in the planning and execution, and also accountability. If you observe, you realize that of late we've been publishing how much we give to the various assemblies. It's part of the transparency
so
process.
That everybody knows what they receive, and then the disbursement, how it's done and how it's made.
There's also another dimension. We have what we call the DDF which is the District Development Facility, based on the Functional Organizational Assessment Tool. It's a Government of Ghana donor-funded project where we look at the performance of the various assemblies based on set criteria. Do they attend meetings regularly? Do they keep records? Do they execute projects?
So
and all
an
those
appraisal system.
Yes. And then they are given marks. What we've started doing is that when we do the appraisal, and you pass, you're given a quantum of money. Some earn as much as $1 million, $1.5 million per assembly. What we're doing now is that we are publishing the results in the papers, so that if your assembly fails, you as a citizen of that assembly, of that district, can go to your DC and ask him, why did you fail? Why have you caused us to lose this 1 million or 2 million? It's all part of the process.
I'm afraid we ran out of time. Cherished viewers, at this point, we say thank you for letting us into your homes. And I'll say thank you to Honorable Elvis Afriankra, Deputy Minister for Local Government, for making time to share with us what is happening at the ongoing National Policy Fair. And again, the Policy Fair began on Monday and it's going to end on Saturday. I will entreat our viewers to find time to come to the Policy Fair.